going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena with Rob and Griff. I'm Griff and Senek, joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and we're back once again. Similar format as it has been these past few weeks. We're just going to go through. We're going to talk some MLB playoffs to start. The first team to clinch the World Series, the Houston Astros. Congratulations to them. They have made the World Series. And the Braves-Dodgers Game 6 will be tonight. I don't know if you'll be seeing this either today or tomorrow, but maybe the Braves will be in the World Series. Maybe you'll be setting up for Game 7 tonight. Very interesting stuff. And then obviously we'll hit on the NFL. But like we said, like I just mentioned, we're going to start with the MLB. And Rob, I'm going to just start right with you here. Houston Astros series. Obviously, they're going to the World Series. They went down 2-1, but the Boston Red Sox, it just looked like they fell asleep towards the end of that series. Yes. What were your takeaways from that series and, the state of both of those teams right now?
The Astros pitching those last three games was really, I think, above what a lot of people were expecting. A lot of people really were questioning that pitching, especially after Game 3. But they really stepped up, and obviously we know how good that Astros lineup is. Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez, perhaps one of the best championship series in the history of baseball. I mean, no matter who comes out of the NL, it's going to be so hard to get those guys out. I mean, this is sort of what makes, we've said it before, but that's what makes the cheating all the more frustrating. We see how good these guys are without it. We see how, Yordan Alvarez, this guy is from a different planet. I mean, 9 for 13. And if the pitching, they need this pitching to continue, but that pitching really exceeded expectations towards the latter part of that series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think something that's also forgotten is the back end of that bullpen is so good. I mean, they've got Kendall Graveman, Ryan Stanek, Ryan Presley, such a good back end. And like you said, that pitching, I mean, it's been shaky at times. Obviously, Verlander's been out for the year. They've had to rely on some of these young guys. Framber Valdez pitched a really good game. I think it was Game 5 or maybe Game 4.
Yeah, Game 5, I think.
Game 5. But they've just gotten a few of these guys. Lance McCullers out too right now. So they've really had to rely on some of these young guys. And yeah, I mean, like you said, that lineup is just ridiculous. And you look at some of those guys, Jose Altuve, I mean, probably one of the worst playoff series of his career, and they were still able to get it done. Just shows the strengths of that lineup. Even Correa, to be honest, didn't have an amazing series. He had that home run in Game 1, but other than that, really didn't do too much. But yeah, like Bregman, like we've said, I mean, Yuli Gurriel is so underrated. He won the batting title. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he's hitting like 7th. It's pretty crazy, these lineup. Michael Brantley, such a good player. I mean, the names just go on. And for the Boston Red Sox, I mean, tough way to end the season, but at the end of the day, they exceeded all expectations. Just like the San Francisco Giants. Wasn't the end you wanted from the playoffs, but what a season. And this team, there's no reason to think that this is a one-year wonder. They've got a superb lineup of young talent. I mean, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, those are two of the best at their position, arguably the best at their positions in baseball. You can make an argument for both of them, I feel. And you've got so much other young talent on that team. We'll see if they return or if they keep Kyle Schwarber. We'll see what the deal is. Verdugo's been good. And the pitching, they've got a lot of young guys that, we saw, a few guys huck throughout the series. It looked pretty solid. So we'll see. Obviously, not the way it wanted to end, but for Boston, I think they're in a pretty good spot. It's a very competitive division. There's going to be 4 teams competing for the playoffs next year as it was this year. And, we'll see what they do this offseason. But, Chris Sale will be more back at, full health, hopefully. So it should be fun times for Boston, hopefully.
Yeah. But I think, like we said, I think that this Astros team, I mean, we'll see if they can keep that core together. Because as we know, I mean, Carlos Correa has pretty much stated his intention to leave in the offseason, but we know how much we know a World Series can change things. So we'll see if they can keep that core together. It really wouldn't surprise me if they were able to capture that second title in 5 years. If they were able to keep Correa.
Yeah, I think it's more just a money problem, honestly. I think Correa wants to stay. I just don't think salary-wise it's going to be tough. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Correa going to be one of the highest paid in the offseason. He's going to get a well over $200 million deal, maybe even $300 million. So we'll see what the deal is with that. But moving on to the other series, which is set to take place tonight, and big news out of that series, Max Scherzer was scratched from his start. He seems like he is really struggling to get going. Dead arm, it seems. He is, that's what happens with age. It seems like Max Scherzer, it seems like he would never fall down, break apart, but slowly maybe he is here. Maybe a lot of workload on him. We're going to have to see how it affects him. If he can pitch again this playoffs, and also, will this have a long-term effect? Could Max Scherzer's arm potentially be, slowly slowing down? We're going to have to see, but obviously 3-2 Braves in that series. That series is going back to Atlanta. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Braves will be able to get it done? The Dodgers right now pretty beat up.
I really hope not, but I think they will. 2 games in Atlanta is really tough. I mean, obviously we know the history between the Braves and the Dodgers, but the bubble is just so different from that ballpark atmosphere. I mean, with all those fans. I mean, just 2 games on the road is so tough to win. If anybody can do it, it is the Dodgers. I mean, despite that they are really beat up, but we know their depth. We know what they're capable of. I mean, I could see this going to 7, but I really don't see the Dodgers beating Atlanta twice in a row. I hope I'm wrong though. I really do.
It is sickening to watch these NL East teams. I mean, a
Yeah.
few years ago, the Washington Nationals, the team that had no business winning that World Series with that lineup, win the World Series. And then all of a sudden, this Atlanta Braves team without Ronald Acuna just making the same, it just is the same exact thing the Houston Astros
Without
in the
Mike
World
Soroka.
Series. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. And Mets and Phillies fans, I mean, it just feels like this type of, I mean, maybe you can look at the Mets and say 2015 was that type of year for them where they kind of shouldn't have made it with that lineup and they made it. But the Phillies, I guess they just haven't had that yet, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. I think the Braves, it's going to be tough for the Dodgers to go and win 2 games there. They do have Walker Buehler tonight though. So that's a
They
huge
do.
game. That's a must win. Obviously there's both must win, but you got to have some
Yeah.
confidence. I don't know who would be throwing in game 7. I don't think Scherzer be ready to. I don't know what the deal is with that. So we're going to have to see if they can get to a game 7,
Yeah.
who would even throw. But yeah, they're beat up. I mean, Justin Turner, he's out for the playoffs. Max Muncy basically done. I mean, Kershaw's beat up. I mean, it's a team that Joe Kelly's now hurt. I mean, it's hairy. And I think the Houston Astros are setting themselves up for a nice World Series victory here. But I mean, if the Atlanta Braves win this series, I honestly don't even know. I mean, I think it's just going to be history repeating itself, and then like the Nationals and the NL East will just be tormented and have another World Series champion.
At least the Nationals had Acuna or Soto and Scherzer, but the Braves don't even have Acuna and Soroka. They don't even have their Scherzer and Soto. If you want,
Well, they have Freddie Freeman. I mean,
they do have Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
No, of course. But obviously, this comparison between they don't have their ace and they don't have their young superstar. Yeah, exactly. Just like the Nats. I mean, it's sickening. It's the correct word to use. It's sickening.
It really is. I mean, it's just laughable. I mean, if someone told me the Atlanta Braves would be in the World Series in the middle of the season, I would have laughed. So
this is especially frustrating for a Phillies fan because the Phillies and the Braves were pretty much in the exact same place at the deadline. The Braves went out and got these moves. I mean, sorry, 1 second. This Eddie Rosario movement. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. Pablo Sandoval. I mean, the Phillies really should have bought at the deadline. I mean, I'm not saying they'd be in the same position as the Braves, but these two teams were really at a similar position at the deadline. And the Braves went for it, and the Phillies really didn't. I mean, they made one move. It wasn't really saying we're going for it, but it's a shame. And I really hope the Braves don't win it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But with that, I mean, I think that will do it. We'll obviously stay tuned. And, next week we'll be talking about the World Series, whichever teams are in that. But that series will wrap up this weekend between the Braves and the Dodgers. And then, the baseball season's coming to a close. The offseason, it's going to be a very fun offseason, I think, for a lot of teams of people watching this. The New York Yankees are going to have a busy offseason. The Mets are going to have a busy offseason. The Phillies should have a busy offseason. So it is going to be a very busy offseason, especially with the free agent class that is pending. So we will see what happens, obviously, with that. But with that, it is time to talk about the NFL. And with that, I will share my screen. We're going to touch on a few games from last week real quick, and then we will move on to our weekly predictions. Last week was interesting. Obviously, it kicked off Bucks Eagles. We picked almost the same game, and we knew that was going to go wrong. I think you ended up with 10. I ended up with 9, so just a little bit over half. We do got to touch on this Ravens Chargers game. Chargers were just completely overmatched, and I mean, Baltimore right now, I mean, they might be I think they are the unquestioned number 2 team in the AFC right now. As crazy as it is to say, Ronnie Stanley now out for the season, I believe. I mean, this is just insanity what is going on with Baltimore and how they are just finding ways to win and dominate teams like the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens, I mean, that Lamar stat line isn't great and he didn't play fantastic, but that's you could argue that's almost scarier for teams. They just beat one of the consensus best teams in the AFC by 4 touchdowns with their MVP quarterback not having the best game. I mean, this is unbelievable. We haven't seen Justin Herbert struggle like this. We know this Ravens defense is very serious, and there were a lot of question marks about them coming into the season. But I mean, holding this Chargers offense to 6 points really is very, very, very impressive. I mean, like you said, I think unquestioned number 2 in the AFC as of right now. Listen, we'll get to it in a second, but I think the Chargers might have a little bit of question marks on that side. I mean, I think that offense, I talked about this incoming Mike Williams regression and what might happen with this. I mean, two catches for 27 yards. I just don't know if he can keep up that consistency at the first 4 weeks. And to me, that raises questions about the amount of weapons the Chargers have, and whether they have enough weapons to keep up with the big dogs of the AFC, like the Ravens and the Bills. And I have to say, I know they beat them, even the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous that people are counting that team up. We'll get to that in a second, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at how bad this and ugly this game was. I think this is just one of those weeks for the Chargers that they just couldn't get anything going. I mean, I think the run game, it was just non-existent. And when that happens, it's just going to be tough to win a football game in general. I mean, Austin Eckler, 6 carries, 7 yards. They just abandoned the run almost immediately in this game. And Justin Herbert, I mean, they had some bad play call too. They went for it very early in the game, far on their own side. It's going to be tough to win these football games when you're down quick. I mean, you see at the half, they're down 17-6, and then they couldn't score again. So it is what it is. I mean, the Chargers, I'm a little more worried than you. I think Mike Williams, I mean, I think he's going to have down weeks, but I think he's also going to have those big weeks. I think Mike Williams has looked good this year. I don't think there's any reason to say that he's going to just fall off a cliff magically and go back to the Mike Williams of old. I do think he's, improved and is a quality number 2 right now in the NFL. Chargers defense didn't have their best game, but it is what it is at the end of the day. And on the flip side, the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, like you said, it's pretty scary that Lamar Jackson can have this stat line and they go ahead and beat the Ravens or the Chargers by 28. But this is a very well played game by this defense. This defense won them this game. That's not even a question. I mean, you look at the defense. I mean, you have Marlon Humphrey still, who's, one of the top corners in the game. Calais Campbell, who, kind of passed his prime, to be honest, but there's not really any big flashy names on here anymore. I mean, this defense, a few years ago, this is the defense that had, Earl Thomas, Marcus Peters, was kind of in his prime, Marlon Humphrey. They had Calais Campbell then too. I mean, they had a lot more big names like CJ Mosley's of the world were on this team. The Matt Judons were on this team. And, all of a sudden they don't really have these big names, but the defense is playing extremely well. So good job of the Ravens. I mean, this team has proved me wrong. I thought the, Cleveland Browns are going to be better than, we'll touch on the Browns in a bit here, but the Baltimore Ravens have absolutely exceeded my expectations, and props to them. Lamar Jackson, I mean, even in a bad week, this team's finding ways to win. So it's pretty impressive. And, for the Chargers, they just got to bounce back after their bye this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I mean, I hate how it does that, but it is what it is for now. These games are all kind of bad. I mean, Chiefs, Washington. I know you kind of want to talk about the Chiefs. Do you want to wait till the predictions to do that?
Yeah. We can wait till we talk about this week's games.
Okay, so I think we're going to touch on probably 3 more of these games. I think the Cardinals, the Cowboys, and then the Titans. This game was not even close. I mean, Cleveland right now is just absolutely beat up. Obviously, they did get the win on Thursday night with Case Keenum starting, but Baker Mayfield, I mean, he is just dealing with a ton of problems in that shoulder right now. You hear he has a torn labrum. He's a fracture now. Just a mess. Kareem Hunt, injured his calf. He's out. Nick Chubb missed this week, but Dearness Johnson had a fantastic week. Shout out to him. Odell's injured. Jarvis doesn't look 100% coming back. I mean, this is a team that is just beat up. Defensively, they're beat up on the O-line. They're beat up. But the Cardinals, give them some credit. Kyler Murray played a beautiful game. James Conner rushed the ball great. And they just have so many weapons on this offense. And the Cardinals are, we had some doubts at the beginning of the year, but this Cardinals team is absolutely legit.
Yeah, they're very, very good. Kyler Murray is an excellent quarterback. I think the Cardinals right now are probably the class of the NFC. I think this team that talked about it, touched on it, but the Zach Ertz trade I think that signified them going all in. And Kyler Murray, I mean, he had those 4 touchdowns, but I don't think this was this wasn't his best game as a pro at all. That Cardinals defense, which I think a lot of people have question marks before this season, us included, really has stepped up this season. I mean, we talked about the injuries, but I mean, they look fantastic. And And that Cardinals offense, we know what they can do. This is a sort of a game. I'm not really too concerned if I were the Cleveland Browns. I still don't think they're on the level. I don't know if they're good enough to win this conference. I don't think they're as good as the Bills. I don't think they're as good as the Ravens. I know you got that Cleveland in you. I know you're very, very optimistic about the Browns, but we'll see how they recover from these injuries. I'm not too concerned about them. I still really hold the same opinion of that I did before this game. So hopefully Baker can recover, and we'll see what they can do for the rest of the year.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think they'll win the AFC this year. I don't think they have a shot. I mean, I think this team right now is just in a hole that is just, they are screwed at this point with these injuries. I mean, you're talking about some of their, Denzel Ward left the game with an injury. I don't know what his status is. You've got, Jack Conklin has been injured. He's, an all-pro tackle. Your two, all-pro running backs have been injured. Obviously, Dearness Johnson looked great, but you're still missing the, part of this offense that makes them what they are. Odell's banged up. Baker's banged up really badly. I mean, Baker's not going to be 100%, not even close to it this season. I'm worried. I just, coming into the year, I think this defense is good. And I think they showed that on Thursday night. I think this is a defense that can get stops, and against, I think they've struggled against some of these top teams, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Chiefs. They've had struggles against, but everyone else, they have really played good against. So I think the Cleveland Browns, I think they're still a playoff team, but I think they're not going to be able to get the job done this year, just because I think, to win the championship and win the AFC, you got to be healthy. And the Cleveland Browns right now, out of those top teams, besides Baltimore, obviously, who is miraculously finding a way to win, but they have Lamar Jackson. That's the difference between the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, he's done good, but he's not anywhere near Lamar Jackson. And that's the reason why these teams are right now separated. And one is able to handle these injuries and one is not.
And I think that sort of lends itself to a greater discussion. I mean, obviously, we know quarterback is arguably the most important position in sports. And you see this with a team like the Miami Dolphins, who are just not content with Tua. I mean, he hasn't been awful this year, but I think teams around the league are starting to recognize, unless you get miraculously lucky, I mean, you have to have an elite quarterback to win in this league. And nothing else matters unless you have one. And we saw what it did for the Chargers. They went from mediocre team to bottom feeders to, we talk about them as one of the contenders. You need to have an elite quarterback. And as we're going to touch on Cowboys Patriots, I mean, even further, I mean, Dak Prescott, unbelievable. Once again, this guy is, I mean, obviously the rest of that offense is fantastic, but this guy, I mean, in the fourth quarter and overtime, he was masterful. I think the importance of the quarterback just really, as like you said, cannot be overstated. And in this day and age, I really don't think it's possible to win with a mediocre quarterback anymore. You need to have that top tier guy. And we've seen it the past few years. I mean, Mahomes and Brady, and before that, Brady again, and then Nick Foles, who got hot miraculously for one of the greatest games I've ever seen by a quarterback. But you need an elite quarterback to win these days. And like you said, that difference between Lamar and Baker is sort of what's separating the Browns and the Ravens and the Bills, as well as the other top AFC teams.
Absolutely. And I think touching on this Dallas Cowboys game real quick, I mean, Trevon Diggs does it again. It's insane at this point. 6 games in a row, had a pick 6, his second touchdown of the season. Just unbelievable. I mean, I know we have our doubts. I know we think he's a little overhyped. He's had some blown coverages. Obviously, it seemed there was a little confusion on that next play with, I believe the Kendrick Bourne touchdown. Yeah. But this kid is legit. And I think, people need to give him, I think everyone's giving him credit, but like I think are starting to finally be like, all right, this kid is very good cornerback. He has got, amazing ball skills, as, we've seen, runs in the Diggs family, clearly. Just wanted to touch on that. And then obviously, I mean, this was a game where New England was really in control for a little bit here. It seemed like they were doing well. Mac Jones, had a decent game. Damian Harris ran the ball good. The defense looked good, but I mean, just Dak Prescott, just unbelievable. And CeeDee Lamb had an unbelievable game. But this Dallas team, I mean, 5-1, they are just incredible at this point. The defense has been so much better than it was last year. And you can just tell this team is much more built to win than they have been these past few years. They've got a great running group, an elite O-line and not elite, but a very good O-line and, receiving.
I think that O-line might be elite. I think, I mean, they're getting Lyle Collins back after this week, you have to remember. So
that is true. And I mean, the emergence of Dalton Schultz, he is a elite tight end. Yeah. Just so many weapons. Cedric Wilson's been good. I mean, this Dallas Cowboys team, I mean, they're going to run this NFC East for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, they might win the division by like 6 or 7 games this year. I mean, I think there are still a lot of question marks about their defense because, I mean, Trayvon is he's been great this year. Don't get me wrong, but what he's doing, he's just going to keep making me look stupid week after week. What he's saying is,
Dude, I think we're gonna be talking next week, and it's gonna be 2 interceptions next week or
dude,
this week.
dude, I
guess they're on bye.
The sustainability level isn't there. I mean, he's a great corner. I mean, obviously, he has this combination. It's the best thing a cornerback can be. He's both really good and really lucky, and there's nothing better than both of those things combined. This Cowboys team, I think it's one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. Actually, I mean, I don't think they're on the level of like the Buccaneers, but this offense is undeniable. I mean, they can come out with you with so many different directions. Zeke, not his best game last Sunday, but he's really looked like the Zeke of old. And Dak Prescott is, I mean, when you have Dak Prescott, I think you can't really rule them out. I mean, this guy has taken another leap after coming back from that injury, which you don't see too often. He's really taken that leap into, I mean, he's been one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. This team is very, very, very scary, but I do think there's still some question marks about that defense and whether they can keep it up. They wouldn't be my pick to win the NFC right now, but like you said, they're the best team in the NFC East by far, and they probably will be for a long time until one of the other 3 figures their stuff out. And I wouldn't count on that being Washington or New York, considering how incompetent they've been for such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, in New York, I mean, Daniel Jones going kind of back to his old self this past week. I mean, the discussion of him as a franchise QB seems to be fading away very quick. Real quick, Bills Titans. I mean, what a win for the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry. I mean, this guy is just unreal, just the best in the world. I mean, Josh Allen honestly played a pretty decent game, but Bills just still not even able to get it done. The Titans, such a weird team. Ryan Tannehill has been horrible this year. He has regressed significantly. But the Titans are 4-2. Derrick Henry, just an absolute superstar. I don't even know what to say about him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Derrick Henry is an unbelievable player, but I don't know, that Bills defense looks a little suspect. You know, it's just not a lot of people thought that would be the case coming into the year. But I'm still not really too concerned about Buffalo. I still think Tennessee is really not that good. I think the AFC South as a whole is kind of just very mediocre. But it's a good win for them. This is the type of win when we look back at the end of the year for the Titans and say this is what won them that division, what won them that AFC South. But that Bills defense against, I keep saying it, like these elite teams in the AFC, their offenses are borderline unstoppable. And if you're showing cracks against Ryan Tannehill, I mean, I understand how good Derrick Henry was, but if you're showing cracks against Ryan Tannehill, I think there's a little bit of a question mark. Obviously, Josh Allen, fantastic again. We know what he can do at this point. There's no question that he's an elite quarterback, but I still think Buffalo is probably the class of the AFC. And my opinion of these 2 teams really hasn't changed that much after this game. This is really a game that could have gone either way.
Very true. It was a good game. Tennessee, I mean, it's a weird team. I agree. They're kind of mediocre. I don't think they're going to, if they make the playoffs, if they win the division, they'll be a first-round exit. But yeah, Buffalo, I mean, this was not their best game, honestly. The defense didn't look great, but, it is what it is. I think this team is still probably the best in the AFC. If you look at the top tiers of talent in these 2 conferences, it's pretty remarkable. The top 5 or so, it is. In the NFC, you've got the Rams, the Cardinals, the Packers, the Buccaneers, obviously, and the Dallas Cowboys. In the AFC, you've got the, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Cleveland Browns, and I'm forgetting one top team, I think.
Bills, Chiefs, Cleveland Browns. You didn't say Ravens.
Ravens, okay. I think I said them.
Did you say
there was a 5th? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe no 5th. I guess not. No, I'm going through the conference. AFC West. Oh, Chargers. There we go.
There you go.
But the top 5 in each conference is pretty darn good, but not too worried about the Bills, Titans. Good win for them. But yeah, speaking of the Titans, Chiefs, Titans, we're just going to start right away. Cleveland Browns, we already touched on, so I don't think we really need to go into that Thursday night game. Besides the fact that the Denver Broncos are imploding, they will be a non-playoff team this season. They had the easiest 3-week start of all time, and then can't win a game. So Chiefs, Titans. I'm going to start here. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think they are the better team. They had a good week last week. Obviously, we saw Pat Mahomes. I don't know what he was doing in the first half. It was a shaky first half, but they figured it out in that second half. They had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce were a little banged up throughout that game, but they ended up getting the job done. The defense looked lot better. Obviously, it was against Washington, but it was a big encouraging step, I think, for them. So I think the Titans, they're going to be, Derrick Henry will pose a challenge, but I'm still going to go with the Chiefs. I just think they're the more talented team.
I think the Chiefs are still the teams. People are counting the Chiefs out too easily for me, to be honest. People are being way too dismissive of Patrick Mahomes, and to me, that number of 8 interceptions, it's not good, but it's like the purpose of every drive is this is gonna set me off on a whole separate tangent now, but the purpose of every drive is to score, and Patrick Mahomes, as we know, is the ultimate risk taker. So I think his interception numbers are really just catching up to what they should have been the past couple of years. And I'm really not too concerned about the Chiefs at all. I think it's going to be a wildly controversial opinion, but I'm calling my shot right now, week 7. The Chiefs will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm calling my shot. The Chiefs will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And the reason for that is Patrick Mahomes. This guy is on a different level. I mean, I also think that Chargers performance in Baltimore was very encouraging for the Chiefs, considering they really should have beaten the Ravens on the road. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumble cost them the game. They had the game-winning field goal set up, essentially. And like you said, I think the Chiefs will let Derrick Henry get his because they have one of the worst run defenses in the league, and we know who Derrick Henry is. One of the greatest running backs of all time at this point, undeniably. He'll get his, but I think this will be I think this will be a pretty high scoring game. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. The Titans defense is really bad. And the Chiefs, I mean, you wouldn't expect it, but they lead the league in a ton of statistical categories offensively. I mean, they're number 1 in points per drive by such a wide margin. It's almost a joke. So yeah, there's my shot being called. I'm still a big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, very interesting. I don't know if you saw, Rob, but I know we were talking about before. Penn State lost in 9 overtimes.
Yeah, I did.
Pretty crazy.
I did.
That is wild. But moving on to this next game, I don't think this game will be particularly close. I didn't think we're really going to talk about the Green Bay Packers. Good game against the Bears last week. It was a little tight. Justin Fields, he needs to stop throwing the ball out of the end zone. I mean, he got picked off once, but he almost got picked off twice doing that. That is something I would, expect him to stop doing soon. But yeah, Green Bay is going to win this game. I don't think it'll be particularly close.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Green Bay, and I'll even segue into the next game here. I think we're both going to pick the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals have been off to a really good start. I mean, they've competed with some solid teams, but we've been hyping the Ravens up all podcast. So I'm going to go. I assume we're both going to go with the Ravens here. Tell me if I'm wrong. Are you going to pick Cincinnati?
You're wrong here. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game.
Wow.
Kind of a shocker, I know, but I think the Ravens are due for a loss. I'm going to be honest. I think that's part of the reason why I'm going the Bengals here. And I've really liked what I've seen from the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow looks so good. And I think this offense is going to be, I think this is going to be a tough offense to stop. You've got Joe Mixon, who is a very good running back in my eyes. Obviously, the O-line isn't amazing, but those wide receivers, I mean, Jamar Chase, this guy is arguably one of the best deep ball catchers already in the league. I mean, this guy's going to have a good game. You've got T. Higgins, you got Tyler Boyd, CJ Uzmoa has looked good, and this defense has played good at times. I like some of their pieces on the defense. They went out, signed Trey Hendrickson. He's a very good football player. There's a lot of guys who I like. So I'm actually going to pick the Bengals in the upset here. I think the Ravens are a very good team. I think they're due for a loss, and I think the Bengals are going to come and surprise a lot of teams here.
All right. I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to go with the Ravens. I don't see, I just don't see them going into MT and leaving with the victory, personally.
We will see what happens. Moving on to the next game. I mean, there's not that many games this week. A ton of teams are on bye. So we're already down to 9 left. So only 12 to predict this week. Panthers, Giants. I'm going with the Panthers. I just think the New York Football Giants are a god-awful football team. Yeah. They are very banged up right now. No Saquon Barkley. No Kadarius Toney, who looks like a very good rookie wide receiver. He's looked exceptional when he's played this year. I forget who else is out on that team, but I know they have another one of their receivers out. So they're very banged up.
Darius Slayton, I think, is out.
Probably Darius Slayton, yeah. So I'm going to go Panthers. Tough loss last week. The offense looked really bad. Sam Darnold has looked horrible recently without Christian McCaffrey, but I still think they'll be able to beat the football Giants here.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you just said. These are two really bad football teams, in my opinion. I think Sam Darnold is just awful, and they passed on Justin Fields for this guy. Remember, but the Giants are another level of awful. I think there's a shot they're the worst team in the NFL. I mean, this team is awful. They have almost no upsides in my opinion. I mean, this they might be worse than the Jets. It's pretty sad. I know there are a lot of New York fans watching this, but it's unfortunate the state of football, and it has been for a few years. But yeah, the Giants, I think, are the worst team in the NFC East, which is saying something. And they might be the worst team in the entirety of the conference. So, Panthers.
Moving on to a team that I think might be the worst in football, the Miami Dolphins versus the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, Miami is what a horrible game. I mean, this is just probably, I mean, we've kind of talked about it after that Jaguars game. Brian Flores, I mean, I was buying into what he was doing down there, but he just looks like a horrible head coach right now. I mean, this guy, they're not even using Myles Gaskin. I mean, I'm sorry, but Malcolm Brown and Salvin Ahmad are just not, they're just mediocre. They're just journeyman running backs. Myles Gaskin, sure, he struggles with pass blocking. Sure, he, had some drops last game, but this guy is by far their best running back. I don't care at the end of the day. He can, catch passes. Jalen Waddle had a pretty good game, but just, I mean, that defense at the end of the game, they just fell asleep at the end. I mean, they're, setting up for the Hail Mary, and they just gave a free pass away. I mean, that is horrible. Miami, I mean, Tua looked good last week, but I don't think Tua is very good. I said that from last year. I actually predicted that Tua was going to be a bust. I'm just going to say it. But I'm picking the Atlanta Falcons here. I mean, this is a team coming off bye. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be back this week. Kyle Pitts had a breakout game that last game we saw. They're using Cordell Patterson well. I mean, I just do not think the Miami Dolphins are any good. And they have no first round pick. I mean, this is an organization right now that they need to either trade for Deshaun Watson at this point, or, I mean, they are done. They're just headed straight for a rebuild. It's pretty crazy at this point.
I think their team even might be this is terrible. I mean, who could have seen this coming after last year, after they went 10-6? I mean, this is a disaster. I think Brian Flores really is not the guy in Miami. He might be destined for somewhere else. I think there's a lot of questions. I don't know if you've seen these reports that there's a lot of discontent between Miami's ownership and their front office right now about this idea whether to trade for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, no one wants to really do it because usually when there's a guy under federal investigation, it might not be the best idea to trade for him, especially sacrificing the future of the franchise. Despite the fact that they don't even really have a future, considering they traded what might be the number one pick this year to the Philadelphia Eagles. This team sucks. Simple as that. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons, who are also not very good, but they're considerably better than Miami. I'll go with the Falcons here.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, they just do not look good. A lot of guys have regressed too. I mean, Xavier Howard, I've just not been impressed with either of them this year. Those guys have major contracts. Jets Pats here. I mean, the Jets just an embarrassing loss last week, or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Falcons. I mean, there's not much more to say than that. Zach Wilson, I mean, he needs, he's just getting out the kinks right now as a rookie quarterback. He's shown signs of being very good, but this Jets team is just not good. I mean, they just have no real talent on that offense for Zach Wilson to throw to. I mean, I know they have Corey Davis, but it's just a joke. I mean, they're running Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, and Michael Carter as a committee out there with a straight face. I'm going with the New England Patriots. They played, very competitive games recently. I know New England they are 2-4.
Yeah,
they're better than their record shows. They've played the Pats, or they played the Bucks, and they played the Dallas Cowboys very close to 1 possessions both. So this Pats team is a pretty good team. I mean, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're a contender for a spot. But I mean, I already wrote you down for Pats here. I assume there's no way you're taking the Jets.
Yeah, no, I don't even. This is such a lost season for the Jets, and it really stinks because the whole idea is to get a judgment of your rookie quarterback, and you can't get a judgment. I mean, look at the guys he's playing with, and I mean, like you said, he's shown flashes. He's made some bonehead decision, but you can't make a judgment of Zach Wilson as of right now. And obviously, I'm going to go with the Patriots because the Jets are bottom feeders. They will be bottom feeders for I think a little bit, like they have been. And God bless you for sticking with that team, Griffin.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I've shifted to a Cleveland Browns fan at this point. I mean, it's just bad. Whatever. My God. Now talking about your team here, Eagles Raiders. I mean, the Raiders, we both picked the Denver Broncos last week, but the Raiders showed up. I mean, considering all the controversy, they played a very good game. Derek Carr looked good. I mean, this Raiders team is a weird one. That's for sure. I don't know if they're good or if they're bad. I mean, that's how they always are. They're just mediocre, but they have weeks where they're good or they're bad. Honestly, the Eagles are probably going to find a way to win this week.
Yeah.
I was going to pick Raiders, but I'm going to go Eagles now that I'm talking to myself. This is just such an Eagles win win here. I mean,
It is.
this is just the most predictable Raiders loss, I think, of all time here. They go out and prove you wrong last week, and then they're going to come out flat. Derek Carr is going to throw 3 interceptions this week, and Jalen Hurts is going to, come out, and maybe we'll see Devonta Smith have, 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. So I'm going to go Eagles. I was going to go Raiders, but I mean, this just smells like a Raiders loss at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with the Eagles pretty much for all the reasons you exactly listed. This is both the most Raiders loss ever and the most Eagles win ever. I also think that the Philadelphia Eagles are the definition of mediocre. I mean, they're going to beat bad teams. They'll lose to good teams. They played the Bucks close in the second half last week. I think this team is just so exceedingly mediocre. But yeah, I think both of these teams are. But like you said, most Raiders loss ever. I'm going to go with the Eagles here.
I mean, this next game, I don't even think we have to talk about the Los Angeles Rams. We saw what they did to the New York Football Giants, just in a total annihilation. And Darrell Henderson, may I add, looks exceptional this season. What a talent he might be.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams here. We don't even really need to talk about this one. Jared Goff homecoming now. So
maybe it'll be a spectacle. Yeah, I think that's the Brady one. That was my favorite line, I think you said, for the Brady game. You said, like, this will be more of a spectacle than a game. And we were wrong. It was a good game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was. We were wrong.
Speaking of Brady, Bucks Bears, Justin Fields will face a very hard defense, and I think it will be a little too much for him here. I'm going to go with the Bucks. Bucks are just such an elite team. I think they haven't even played up to the level that they're capable of. I honestly think that they're kind of just rolling with it and just getting wins right now, and they'll dial it up for the playoffs. But I mean, Antonio Brown, this guy has just torched defenses this season. Mike Evans,
not playing.
Gronk will still be out. AB also out, I may add.
Yeah.
Yes. You're correct. But it doesn't matter. You're taking the Bucks. Secondary's been bad, though. The secondary's beat up and it's been bad. So you have to look at this Bucks team and say, hey, maybe they won't win it. It's that secondary. It's a little suspect and banged up right now. But regardless, this game, this is the Buccaneers to lose.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers. It's gonna be a real test for Justin Fields. We'll see how he plays this week, but I think that's the main thing I'm gonna be looking for from this game.
Yeah, I think I'd love to see him use Allen Robinson more. Really would. I mean, Allen Robinson, like we've said on this podcast, he's just counting down the seconds to get out of there. This next game, D-Hop will go against the Houston Texans here. But, I mean, D-Hop barely – I mean, he saw 4 targets last week. At this point, it's getting ridiculous with how many guys they have. Arizona's going to be 7-0, though. It's pretty crazy. I'm assuming you're going with them as well here. But,
yeah,
I mean, Arizona, man, this team – I mean, it's weird. Let's look at the schedule, actually. I want to see when they're out. They play the Packers next week, so that might be their first loss. I think but like even after that, 49ers, Panthers, Seahawks, Russ probably will be back, but then Bears, Rams, Lions. I mean, this is an easy schedule. They might only lose 3 to 4 games this year.
Cowboys, Cardinals. That'll be a game.
Yes. Wrong way, but yeah, Cardinals, both of us. Colts, Niners. I'm going to go Colts, honestly, here. I think the Colts played it didn't seem like you agreed with me there, but I'm going to go Colts. I think Carson Wentz had a good week last week. I don't know if T.Y. Hilton, seems like re-injured or injured again. I don't know if he'll be active this week, but Jonathan Taylor, I mean, I think this guy needs to get way more work than he's getting. I believe he had 14 carries or something like that last week. And I might be biased because I haven't been fantasy, but I mean, you can just look at the stats, 14 for 145. And you know what? I think he had 2 touchdowns. This guy's just a talent. I mean, he is just unreal. He just keeps ripping off big play after big play in these games. And he really needs a, 20 plus touch workload a game. I know they have Marlon Mack. I know they have Nyheim Hines. I know they're shopping Marlon Mack, but still, I think this Colts team, I think the defense is slowly but surely starting to play a little bit better. We saw them have some takeaways last week. Well, obviously it was the Houston Texans. That's a positive sign in my mind. So give me the Colts. Honestly, I think this is, a good matchup for them. And, 49ers are a good team, but honestly, I don't know. I think they're just mediocre, to be honest. And I think Jimmy G might be back. I might be wrong.
Yeah, Jimmy G is starting this week. I'm gonna go with the 49ers. I think both of these teams are pretty mediocre. I think the Colts are probably on the worst end of mediocre than the Niners, though. This is perfect. This is playing. I'm gonna bring it back to this Philly perspective, but this is playing out perfectly for the Philadelphia Eagles to see Carson Wentz. He's playing well, so they can't bench him, and they're still losing games. I mean, this will be a tough one for the Colts to win, in my opinion. I think, obviously, I think this might be a toss-up, but I'm going to go with the Niners out of my hatred for Carson Wentz. Yeah, Yeah, I'll go with Jimmy G and the Niners this week. I think this is a matchup of two mediocre quarterbacks and two mediocre teams. But I think the Niners, they have that home field advantage. I do think and I do think they're just a better team than the Colts in general. I could see Deebo Samuel having a huge week. Yeah.
I think besides last week, I don't know if you'll ever pick the Colts. So yeah, pretty funny.
Yeah, that might be a universe. That might be a uniform thing throughout
maybe the Jags.
rest of the.
But maybe I think even the Jags, you might go with the Jags. Saints, Seahawks. I mean, Seahawks, they put up a fight last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's Big Ben. This is, the Saints who, they're a weird, mediocre team. I guess
they're so weird.
Seattle. But I'm gonna go with the Saints here. I see we've only picked two different games as well, which is very scary. But they seem like locks. I get the Raiders will probably win since we both picked the Eagles. Yeah. I'm gonna go with the Saints here. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Michael Thomas still not back. He's not gonna be back for a few more weeks, which is not great to hear. Saints fans definitely were hoping to get him back sooner rather than later, but this is a game they need to win. It's prime time. Obviously, Seattle's a tough place to play, but Geno Smith's at quarterback. Those receivers just looked like they weren't really going to be able to do much with Geno Smith at their quarterback. And, Chris Carson's on IR right now. So they're just missing pieces here and there. And that defense is very suspect. So I think the Saints are due for a good game. I think Alvin Kamara should have been, a very good Monday night. So, the Monday night miracle, as it has been these past few weeks for fantasy football owners, Alvin Kamara might be that guy this week.
He might be. This is such a tough game to pick. I think both of these teams are bad. I'll go with the Saints too. Sorry, I know.
Seahawks are winning now.
yeah, exactly. Geno Smith is just he's really not good. It's really tough to win with a guy like him at quarterback. And while Jameis, he's nothing special. I think the Saints are much better than the Seahawks outside of that too. Like the Seahawks are just so banged up right now. We've said that about a few teams. We've seen it the past couple of years. This is really the NFL season is almost a test of who can finish the season the healthiest. Like the Buccaneers last year, they were really healthy throughout the entire season. They got to that Super Bowl. But yeah, I'll go with the Saints here. But this is a team that lost to the Giants, so who knows what's going to happen. I'll go with the Saints though.
I think the Saints are. I don't know what are they due for a win or a loss? So they're due for a loss this week.
What a weird team.
They got blown out by the Panthers. They blew out the Packers. They lost to the football Giants. They destroyed the Patriots and they beat the football team. Wow. What a weird team.
What a weird team is right.
Well, that does it. I mean, that is what? How many teams did we predict this week? That is 12 predictions for the week. We only have two different. That's scary. I'm going to be honest. That's not a good sign, but we'll see what happens. Honestly, it should be a good week of NFL football. I know a lot of good teams are on bye. A lot of good fantasy players on bye. So, fantasy teams out there, are missing some guys, but it is what it is. And, I think that kind of covers it for this week. NBA real quick. I think we have to talk about this as a Philly guy yourself. The Ben Simmons saga. It just continues. It doesn't even... It just doesn't ever end. So I'm going to give you the floor here, Rob. Just give your thoughts on the situation.
I'm bewildered. I was actually at the game last night. Crowd was a little less hostile towards him than you might expect, but I just don't know what either of these sides are doing. I actually think Daryl Morey is probably playing it right rather than selling low on Ben Simmons because we know that this guy is an elite regular season player. He's just a playoff choker. I just don't get Ben's angle here. First it was the bat, and if the guy does have mental health issues, then I obviously it's very serious and should be taken seriously. But first it was back issues, then it was mental issues. I think this guy is destroying his support from around the league because every report from Shams to Woj, and obviously we can tell Shams has that little bit of clutch backing in his pocket. We can tell where each of their sources are coming from, but this guy is destroying his reputation in the league because the league is backing Morey. I think that's evident. Right now. But I just don't get the idea of not talking to your teammates, burning all these bridges. But the team has been constructed around this guy. I don't get his angle here. What does he want? What does he want to go play? And then there was this report that came out that said Simmons has felt like he's been pressured too much since his rookie year. So let me get this right. You'd rather be in a situation like De'Aaron Fox, where you've never made the playoffs, than play with one of the league's premier players and one of the most dominant big men at this stage of the last 20 years, than just sit on some bottom feeder? That's what you'd rather do, Ben? I don't get it. I don't get this guy's angle. And I don't get why he won't play. Play, boost your trade stock, we'll trade you. You'll get what you want if you play. Why? And then there's this other report. He's ignoring every single person, even the security people. What is he, 7 years old? This is the result of a guy. This is the result of a guy who's been told the best since he was 5 years old. And he has been. He's been recruited by the best high school in the country. He was recruited by every single college coach he wanted. He was the #1 overall draft pick. This is the result of that. And you can see that in comparison with a guy like Joel Embiid, who's had to work hard for everything he's gotten and has improved significantly since he's come into the NBA. This is just unbelievable. I can't believe. The Sixers haven't handled this perfectly. I don't mean to be, defending Sixers management, because obviously I'm not the biggest fan of them either. But to me, Ben Simmons needs to show up and play and boost his trade value. And it's almost unbelievable to me that after the playoff series that he had last year, that he is the one who is attempting to make demands. And this is going to be a real problem for the NBA in the future, in my opinion. They might use Ben as a scapegoat because clutch sports has become insanely powerful. And they're almost running NBA. And Morey has really been the first GM that's attempted to stand up to them. And so far, it's working. So I think this is going to be a real case study for the league. We'll see what happens. But it's so frustrating because whether we like it or not, in the regular season, we're a better team with this guy on the court. I just want him to show up and play, boost his trade value, and get we need to get what we deserve for this guy. I mean, if he wants to leave, he needs to play. Simple as that.
Yeah. The clutch sports thing is very interesting that you mentioned, because I believe Anthony Davis is also a member of clutch sports.
He is correct. Yeah.
So we've seen these high, big name profile guys, and they've said they want to leave, and they've gotten their wish before. And I think I don't get the whole wish to be traded. I think you don't see that in the MLB. I'll just be honest. I can't remember really too many guys who are requesting to be traded in baseball. It really only happens in the NBA and the NFL, and you just see it on such a high level, and it's kind of ridiculous at this point that guys are just you got to accept that if you sign somewhere, if you're somewhere, you got to play for them. And you can't whine your way out of there. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. Like you said, the Ben Simmons thing, my whole thing, I didn't understand, it seemed like in the team meeting, he was saying that, we all need to be held accountable, which I don't really understand that, because I don't understand what the Sixers players should be holding themselves accountable for what he's doing. That was really confusing to me. I think he's just, he says he's not in the right mental state, and I can see that. It just doesn't seem like he's mentally right now. I don't know what the whole deal is. I don't know. To me, I feel like there's got to be some people in his circle that are telling him one thing and have just told him something. And, maybe that clutch sports group, like you said, they're kind of telling him to keep going. And now his whole public reputation has been ruined. So I can see how this can take a mental effect on him, but he's not doing himself any favors by, not going in the team huddle, just showing up and not doing anything. He's not doing himself any favors. I don't know what is going on with Ben Simmons. Obviously, Philadelphia, like you said, they're a better team without him, but with him, I should say. But I don't know. I'll be honest. I think even with him at this point, I don't know if they're capable of being able to win the title. And I think with him, there's going to be some serious chemistry things of it might just be a nightmare on the court. We have no idea what's going to happen. This is just, it's weird to think about. One thing that just came to mind is something I remember is in the Last Dance documentary, you hear of Scottie Pippen, who said, he wanted to be traded and whatnot, and how he, didn't play, but then how he got convinced to play. It almost reminds you of that to a lesser extent. Obviously, it's not the Bulls. This isn't, they don't have Michael Jordan. This isn't the greatest team of all time, but we'll see what happens. Will that kind of be the resolution? And, Joel can convince him to play, or is he seriously, from what I've taken out of it, I don't know if he's going to play this year. I'll be honest. And I think it's so unfortunate for the 76ers, because they're just being screwed out of getting the value that they deserve for a player of Ben Simmons' caliber. Whether you like it or not, he is, all-world defensive player. Sure, he's got, I think the problem with him, and, he's just shooting is he's clearly not worked on it, because at this point, if you are in the NBA and at that high a level of a talent, and you seriously cannot get your shooting fixed, and in 4 or 5 years, you're clearly not trying hard enough, because he has been given every single possible way, and surely should be able to shoot at least free throws by now, at least be a good free throw shooter at the minimum, not a 3-point. He's not going to be shooting like Steph Curry, but I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a rant here a little bit here. I'm frustrated for you, honestly. Like it's a very unfortunate thing for 76ers fans to have to deal with. And I mean, for Ben Simmons, I just don't like these athletes just being able to control their destiny and being, so demanding and being like, oh, I want to play here and here and here, and that's it. And like they don't have, I guess they have the right, but in pro sports, you sign a contract, you have to, in the real world, you can't just say, obviously you can quit and retire, but like, I don't know. It's a very bad situation. I don't even know what to say anymore.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, I'm not trying to like defend the owners or anything here, just like, get on my high horse to defend these, like, these $1 billion enterprises or anything. But what I'm saying is just like this whole idea of like star empowerment, right? Like, to me, like, this player empowerment movement hasn't been so much as like player empowerment as it has been like star empowerment. Because when these stars get traded, like 9 guys have to relocate, like 9 guys have to uproot their lives, have to change their whole living situation. So to me, this whole emergence of clutch sports is really just there's some shady stuff going on over there. I think everybody can acknowledge that. And this is really, Daryl Morey has been the first GM, and I think a lot of people actually probably could have predicted, if any GM was going to stand up the clutch, who would it be? Daryl Morey is really the first GM, I said it, to stand up to them. And listen, I think it's good that players have this ability. They can't, like, they can finally get value for what they deserve. Because to be fair, Scotty was making like $2 million a year in his prime. I think it's good and all, but like, to me, this movement is more about star empowerment than it is about player empowerment.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, you don't see some of the, bench players demanding a trade. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It is kind of crazy, but I think in terms of time of the podcast, we're not going to really touch on the NBA regular season today. It's only been a few games and not too much has happened. So maybe in a week or two, we'll kind of touch on it when we've seen what the deal is. Obviously a lot of, more off the field situation, off the court situations. You got the whole Kyrie Irving thing, the Ben Simmons thing. That's really, but it's been the headlines, not the play. But with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching this episode of Outside the Arena. Obviously, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, comment on the video. We appreciate it greatly. Check out our second channel, OTA Clips. That'll be a breaking news style format as MLB off season kicks off. Probably be able to see that. Maybe we'll do a reaction to the World Series, post World Series games on there or something like that. We'll kind of figure it out, try and get a little more content up on there. Check us out, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Outside the Arena, our Instagrams, as well as the podcast Instagram, Outside the Arena Podcast, will be in the description. And yeah, with that, have a good weekend, everyone, and enjoy, the football, the baseball, all the sports. UFC tonight. We got 2 UFC main events coming up back to back, 267, 268. So there's a lot of sports going on right now. Not really much complaining you can do as a sports fan. NBA is back, NHL is back. It's a good day to be a sports fan. And with that, so long.